Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it. First off, I want to say thank you to the library, to the Champaign Public Library for this opportunity. Super excited to be here. I hope that you guys are as excited as I am, if not more, right? So, as she said, so I am currently the Chief Deputy Treasurer for Champaign County. I am in my third year there now. A lot of, as you know, a lot of you would know, just with public service, there's a lot of happiness, but there's more tears at times, right? But I wouldn't trade it for the world because we get to help people. I am the founder of Blackvest Money, which is at its core, it's a financial literacy company, right? We teach people the basics of your day-to-day financial decisions. A lot of times we want to get to C and D, but we forget the A and B, right? So that's what we, ensure, or we strive to ensure that people are made aware of, just the day-to-day know-hows. With that, it kind of spiraled into essentially what birthed that. Let me backtrack. What birthed that was a desire to witness, and me wishing that I had these resources 15 to 20 years ago, right? I feel like I could have eliminated so many mistakes, but I'm grateful for those mistakes because now it allows for me to ensure that other folks don't go through the same thing. Now we have, it's spawned into, investment properties and whatnot. We've been grateful to have a handful of investment properties. We teach these courses. I've made a bunch of amazing relationships. At this rate, I'm close to 20 years in the financial industry in some capacity, right? So it's been an amazing situation. It has allowed for me to meet individuals and be in rooms that I never thought I would have been in. Right. So my hope tonight is to open your mind and ensuring that you guys are able to walk away with what it means to walk away with SMART goals, right? What it means to ensure that you have the day-to-day kind of transactions and processes and your thought process to then be able to go to the big banks, the small banks, wherever it is, whatever it is, to ensure that you are ready and able to receive that financing. Make sense? Everybody on board? Y'all got to talk to me. I get nervous if y'all don't. All right. So if you don't mind, I will ask to go across the room. Just introduce yourself. Kind of tell me if you're an entrepreneur wanting to be, what it is you're doing currently. Fair? Start with you.
Hi everybody. Stephen Johnson, self-employed entrepreneur. Got a couple of businesses going and trying to get a few more going. So hopefully this information helps me get there.
Awesome.
Hi, everybody. Corinne Israel, same as Stephen, entrepreneur, own a couple businesses, trying to learn from the best. Like we always say, knowledge is power, so I'm here to learn.
I'm Tisha Nicola. I am actually a family therapist right now. I'm switching from W-2 to 1099 and wanting to do private practice, so.
I heard that.
Voice is not working.
Uh-oh. All right.
Carlotta Weatherspoon Taylor. She's an entrepreneur and she would like to advance.
Carlotta, welcome. You just nod your head and give me a thumbs up, all right? Don't you worry about it.
Bridget Hughes, looking to get into business for myself. I'm currently in education administration.
Awesome. Welcome, Bridget.
Actually started a nonprofit. We transferred we went to local farms to the food banks, and now I'm trying to make like some more
Awesome.
Everybody, my name is Bridget LaShore, and I'm just trying to figure out which direction I should go because I do want to start a business, but sometimes you just don't know where to start.
Awesome.
And that's what I'm looking for.
Bridget, you're in the right place. I got you. We got you. If not, we're going to figure out where to take you, so you'll be good.
And so my goal is to figure out, like you said, how to go from point A to point B. I feel like there's so much in between that we don't know.
Good thing.
And we just have to go straight. So I'm
Sure thing. Awesome.
Joseph. I'm actually a student here at U of I, and I'm here because I'm interested in entrepreneurship and like the steps it takes to like create your own business.
Hey everybody, I'm Sam Steedwell. I have a full-time job, but I'm also an entrepreneur. I'm mainly here for my construction materials company. I'm seeking to build a lot of credit and credit lines and credit cards for that company right now. So that's my main reason for being here.
Okay. All right. Well, welcome. I have a special guest with me. So the last time we did this course and everything, we crossed a lot of paths. We got a lot of information, but one of the main questions was just, hey, do you have a bank contact? Is there someone that we can get in contact with? We've taken all this information. Who do we go to, right? I have the pleasure in having a friend who happens to be one of those contacts, right? Mr. Ryan Heiser, I want to introduce him. He is the president and CEO of Fisher National Bank. So Ryan, if you want to just give a shout out.
Yeah, absolutely. As Sean mentioned, I'm president and CEO of Fisher National Bank. We're a community bank located here in Champaign County. We have a facility out on Staley Road across from Carl the Fields. We also got locations in Mahomet and Fisher. And then we purchased a bank in Vermilion County. So we'll have a presence over by Danville as well. So prior to becoming president and CEO, I have 20 years of commercial lending experience, mostly in the Champaign and Mahomet markets. So like DeShawn said, I'm here for guest speaker, and hopefully this is an interactive session because I want to answer your guys' questions. I'll stay as late as we need to tonight to try to cover as much as possible. And again, I don't know exactly what the agenda is. Hopefully you guys have questions for me and I can try to point you in the right direction. But I look forward to hearing what DeShawn has to say and then jumping in where I can.
Awesome. All right. So my first question to everyone is does any or everyone, do you know what SMART goals are? Go for it. Someone, anyone. Y'all say yeah, don't look around.
So a SMART goal is specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and timely.
I heard that. Is that something you use in therapy, for therapy?
Absolutely. You gotta know, I have a path to know where you're going.
That's a fact. So I'm going to ask everyone if you can write this down. And I apologize, my handwriting is, I have a SMART goal for that too.
Can you kind of turn your board around?
Absolutely. How's that?
That's fine.
All right.
Thank you.
All right. So yes, specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. So with the specific, the question that you ask yourself in that space, I'll give you a second to finish writing. I'm sorry. I was about to jump ahead.
I left my notebook.
You're good. I think we got some. Hold on. Give me 1 second. Thank you. We got you. All right. So specific. We're going to ask a question for each portion of this acronym, essentially, right? So specific. The question for that is, what will I achieve? Who will benefit from this goal? And what specific thing will I accomplish? So go ahead and take a second, and I want you to write that down, because at the end of this, I'm going to ask for someone to share before we move forward. So you're looking at receiving additional funding, right? So what's your goal, essentially? What are you wanting to do with that funding? What are you wanting to achieve in this whole bubble, essentially? And to be clear, everyone's going to be a little bit different, right? Because I think you were saying that your goal essentially was to just kind of get a grasp on from the financial arena, as a whole, right? So understand that everybody is going to be different. So I want to make that clear. All right. The next is for measurable. So measurable is how much, how many, and how will I know when it's done? So in the sense of you wanting funding, right? How much do I need to save? How much time do I need to put in? What do I need to put in? Who do I need to contact? Those type of questions for yourself. All right. Achievable. Is this goal something that I can actually reach? Do I have the tools and support I need to accomplish this? All right. The next is R, for relevant. Is this something that I really want? Is now the right time to do this? And why is this goal important? Why is this goal important? Mm-hmm. All right. And then the last, it's time bound. When will I reach this goal? And is the time frame reasonable for what I'm wanting to achieve? What was your name? One more time. I'm sorry, bro. No, my gentleman back. Marcus. Marcus, if you don't mind, can I ask you to share? We'll give just a couple more seconds just to let folks finish up. Because again, before we can accomplish any goal, we have to understand the plan to achieve it, right? What this is going to allow for you to do, again, is to break it up into small pieces to get to your ultimate destination. And I'll explain all of that too after. Go for it.
The specifics, the capital for the company, measurable is between 50K and 100K. And I'm eager to talk with the gentleman at the Fisher Bank because I've gotten funding from organizations like Justin Peterson and organizations like UC Chase, like non-negotiable. Like they just kind of wrote me off because of other reasons. Is it achievable? Yes. Is it relevant? Yes, because I want to fund the company to scale up and having working capital that is relevant. And the time bound, I'm giving myself between 7 months and 1 year.
Cool. Hey, ask you this, and if you, we'll just kind of go back and forth, right? Justine Peterson, you mentioned. I worked with Justine Peterson early on when kind of they were first getting things going, right? Interest rate, I assume, was pretty significant. If you don't mind, how?
9.5%.
Okay. How's the experience? Has it been?
Wonderful. They gave me $50,000 for the box truck.
Okay.
Which I've been able to scale up to obtain an authority as well as, again, working capital and other expenditures.
Okay.
But like I said, I'm looking for something more than that at other institutions. I think with Justin Peterson, they kind of limit, once you get one loan, that's kind of it.
Yeah.
You are paying regularly on your loans, they kind of shut you down until, and that may be the same at Fisher, the same way. Can you get multiple loans?
Oh, you can get multiple loans. I don't know when you want me to jump in here,
Go for
if you want.
Yeah, if we can keep it interactive. Go for it.
So, basically, what you're asking me is, what does it attain to get or what does it take to get a loan? And in banking early on, they teach you there's 5 C's to credit. Have you heard those? Yeah, I mean, cash flow is number one. I mean, do you have the ability to pay the loan back? So the bank's going to look to see how you generate cash, how much cash you generate in a certain time frame, whether it be monthly, quarterly, annually, and we want to see how you're going to pay that debt back. That's first and foremost. After that, we look at collateral. Do you have anything? So the bank has to plan on worst case scenario, right? If you got sick or your business failed or something catastrophic happened, how does the bank get repaid? And that's the collateral. You said you got a loan for a box truck. The box truck qualifies as collateral. Real estate would be collateral. Inventory, accounts receivable. So there's multiple different pieces of collateral we can look at. We look at character. What have you done with your life? What have you done with your business? How's your credit report? Stuff like that. Or credit history is the next one. So what has past trends been? Past trends are usually a future indicator on how you're going to do in the future. So it's important that everybody have a good credit score and maintain a positive credit history. And then the last one is conditions. Conditions is very broad, is very vague. But what's the local economy doing? What's the market doing? What was your business again? Electrical supply company. So what's going on in the construction industry, specifically in Champaign? You know what I mean? Or do you focus on commercial construction or residential construction? So again, it's about the bank. The bank wants to understand what kind of market conditions are involved with your business in your area.
So I kind of want to talk to you about that. I feel like after maybe 2 of those C's, stop talking to me.
Okay.
And so that's what I'm getting at. Like, these banks are so caught up in this structure, if you will.
Sure.
That businesses like myself, I was new in the business, I was making very little money, and so I maybe didn't have what they were looking for.
Sure.
That's why I was saying that these big banks kind of regress from and look at those institutions. So how do you plan to combat that for some of those businesses that may not meet all those needs?
Yeah. So again, some of that's going to be up to you. You know what I mean? Like, what are the C's that are missing, right? Cash flow is number one. If we don't have cash flow or the ability to prepay debt or a solid business plan, I don't think any bank in America will look at you, right? So that's the first and foremost. After that, it's up to you to maintain good credit report. Market conditions. Again, as a business owner, you want to kind of manage those, understand your surroundings, understand your business, put a lot of thought and detail into that, create a business plan. But there's also local tools and resources here to help you. And anybody who's got pen and paper, you might want to write some of these down. I got to make sure they're long acronyms here, but they're here in Champaign County. But the first one is Illinois Small Business Development Center at Champaign County EDC. And your contact there would be Don Elmore. And that's a free, go ahead.
He's retired. He's not.
Oh, Don is retired? Thank you, Madeline Wilski. Anyways, have you used their services before? Okay, great. But for everybody else in the room, they can help you work on a business plan. They can help you with cash flow projections. So if you have a new business, how do you get to the point where you're cash flowing? They can help you prepare some of that information and put it together. They understand industry trends, and it's a free service for Champaign County folks. So that's a resource. Another resource locally would be Champaign County Regional Planning Commission. Which one? The first one that I said was Illinois Small Business Development Center at the Champaign County EDC. And then the second one is Champaign County Regional Planning Commission. And RPC. RPC has a fund that they started in the early 2000s, and what they do is they help fund small businesses. So if you, let me stop that. They don't do the entire funding. What they typically look at is the amount of down payment you need to get a loan sometimes with the bank. So maybe if you're short on collateral or you need a little bit more money into it, the Regional Planning Commission will loan you, 10, 20, 30, 40% of the venture that you're working on. And then that way the bank will come in and supplement the rest. And that gives the bank a local comfort level because they're not all in on the risk that's involved, right? The key to banking is risk, that they want to loan stuff out. We want to help local folks. We want to help our community, but at the same time, we got to make sure that we mitigate our risk. But they will do small business loans and help folks regionally here in Champaign County get their stuff started sometimes. Their goals are to increase employment in the state or in Champaign County, and then also generate tax revenue. So.
From a percentage standpoint, how many small businesses do you guys work with?
We mostly work with small businesses. Yeah, I'd say it's about 60% of our lending background would be small business lending.
To be clear, the reason for me bringing Ryan specifically is because I know for a fact that they are out of the local, banks. They're the ones to essentially handle that.
And how many Fisher? I didn't hear Fisher.
We opened in 1955.
In Champaign.
In Champaign, we started on Neal and St. Mary in 2013. And then we built a full-service facility in 2020. Yep.
So Ryan, let me ask you this, right? To touch on the cash flow, aspect of it, right? I remember I did when I was working for another bank that we will remain nameless. They ran into essentially the same thing that you ran into, right? They were active within the community. They performed well at all of the festivals and things of that nature. When it came down to, to the underwriting aspect of it, it was a fear essentially, right? They didn't have a lot of cash flow at that time. My argument to our underwriters, like, listen, I see these guys at the festivals and things. You have to see the lines and just to understand the hype, right? We took a solid 6 months of, just planning and building. They had to work on some things as far as their personal credit is concerned and whatnot, but they were also in a position where they were able to essentially put away some funding to what, Ryan is saying, that would be able to show the lender that, okay, well, in worst case scenario, we could give them this amount and not lose anything too crazy. So my question to Ryan for you guys is, what's the time frame from a bank essentially turning them away to them being able to get the funding? Like what's that time frame look like?
So by law, we have 30 days to give a decision, to make a decision whether we're going to approve the loan or deny the loan. So you can at least expect something in the range of 30 days. A lot of it is going to depend on the loan officer that you're dealing with and probably the bank and their credit philosophies. I don't want this to be a commercial for Fisher National Bank. I can just tell you what I'm aware of or what I know. We typically turn decisions in 5 to 7 days. We don't like to drag things out. We like to try to use common sense. And we also like to try and educate the customer as well. And educate it's a joint venture, right? Like we want to learn together. I've kind of heard this touched on a couple of times already with conversations, but when we're talking about cash flow, this might be something you guys want to write down. But what banks are looking at for cash flow purposes is called a debt coverage ratio. And we want to see that you have enough income to service your debt. So for every dollar that you have in payments, there should be $1.20 in income. And so the debt coverage ratio is 1.20x. That's minimum. So if you're not there, that's where you need to be.
Good.
That begs the question, how many is there?
It's a great question, right? So again, then that takes us all the way back to the beginning. How do we get there? right?
And what banks are helping you get there?
So, I won't do a commercial for Fisher National Bank, but what I will say is, let me be clear, because we are being recorded. I don't know which banks are specifically going to, I don't want to say hold your hand in this process, right? But what I will say is I know that was a part of, again, why I started Blackvest, right? To kind of fill some of those voids. I know a few individuals that work with this gentleman here that, can steer you in that right direction. We mentioned Don Elmore. Don Elmore is someone that I met early on. He was amazing, and just in the work that he did. I hadn't had the experience of the individual that has replaced him, at least not yet. But I will say this, I can, if nothing else, before we leave here, I can give you a couple resources, of individuals that I know can help. I have to assume, Ryan is willing to do something, because at the end of the day, it's going to result in Fisher receiving some funding. You get what I'm saying? So that, again, that's what goes back to our SMART goals. That it literally goes back to the basics. As far as just the credit and things of that nature, how many, and again, not to embarrass you, if you don't know, that's fine. Do everyone know kind of where they are from a personal credit standpoint? Okay, so as far as your personal credit is concerned, pretty confident that you would get approved for, whatever personal in that case, right? So,
Well,
go for it.
I have, did you have a question?
Oh, no, I just
Oh,
commented. That's
okay.
what I thought, but one time I got denied, even though I thought I was good.
Yeah.
I was just throwing that.
We'll touch on that. Go for it.
So I have a question for everybody in the room. How many of you have a credit monitoring service right now? Anybody monitoring their credit, taking a look at it? Everybody in the room should in some aspect. If you don't mind me sharing, who are some of the folks you use to monitor credit? What services or companies?
I don't do it, but I kind of monitor I do Credit Karma, but
Okay.
I heard that they're not that accurate.
Well, so they can be accurate. What we have to understand is that they have a different scoring model than the three major credit bureaus, TransUnion, Equifax, and Experian. So just because you see a score on Credit Karma doesn't necessarily mean that's going to translate into the same score with TransUnion, Experian, or Equifax. But the point being is that if you're reviewing your credit score, you should have a good idea of what your payment history is, how much credit you have outstanding, stuff like that. And of course, I could sit here and talk all day about credit scoring and what you need to do to maintain a good credit. But first and foremost, keep an eye on your credit cards. They're the things that can build your credit the fastest and destroy your credit the fastest. So if you have credit cards, you probably hear a lot of people say, rack them up and then make payments. That's false. Really, the key to credit scoring and credit cards is if you have that money available, try not to use it unless you absolutely need it. Because what they do is they look at the amount of credit you have approved or you have available and how much you have used. So if that's up here, that's going to show that you're using a lot of credit and you may not have the cash to pay for your expenses. But if your credit used is down here and your credit limits are up here, then that shows you have money available and you're financially responsible and independent. So there's a lot of tricks to the credit scoring thing, but the most important thing is that you guys understand it and monitor it.
I wanted to ask you, is it bad if people are giving you more credit? Like, sometimes people just raise.
Yeah, that's a really good question. So I don't know, again, every model is a little different. In general, you want 2 to 3 major credit cards, nothing more. So if you have more than 3 credit cards, I'd encourage you to close some. You don't want any more than 1 to 2 store cards. So Kohl's, Menards, Walmart, about everywhere we go shopping today, they ask you if you want credit, right? You guys are best off saying no, if you want to know my honest opinion, because those store cards affect your credit worse than a regular credit card or an installment loan. So you don't want any more than 1 to 2 store cards. A lot of people will get them, buy their clothes, and then pay them off. and then they don't use them again, but they still leave them open and active. If you have too many credit cards open, then that means you have too much credit available, so you need to go close some of them. And then you need to have some sort of a regular installment loan, whether that be installment loan is something you make monthly payments on. So whether it be a real estate mortgage or a car loan or anything, you want to establish some sort of regular payment history outside of a credit card. So if you do those things and you do them right, you'll build a good credit score.
What about credit cards that offer cash back? Does it make any difference?
No. Yep.
The credit cards offer cash back. That's where they go. Chase that part.
Is that a plug?
So I got like my business, everything with Chase. I'm not, you know, and I have other things with justification, but I want to expand my base in terms of banks. So I just haven't had a lot of experience with the local banks yet.
How long have you been in business?
Yeah, that was my question.
And are you reporting everything on a Schedule C, or do you have a corporation, or what's your business outlook?
First year, I didn't have any cash flow,
Okay,
so then I just scheduled C the next 2 years.
okay. Yeah, so right there, I assume you're developing credit history in some point. So a bank would be able to look at your Schedule Cs, and they could probably help you, you know, analyze your cash flow, and then give you some suggestions on ways to improve it and stuff like that. Yeah.
I mean, has that been your experience here thus far with your current bank?
It's pretty good. Chase has been pretty good.
Okay,
But you know, I mean, Chase didn't give me that loan, but I had already had the loan for just a few years.
Okay.
So I've not circled back around Chase yet. I only had my business with them for about a year and a half now.
okay,
It's fairly new.
okay. And so I want to ask this question to everyone, right? You guys, everyone is kind of seeing how the personal credit goes hand in hand with the business, essentially, right? To what Ryan was saying, you know, just as far as just the credit, like the utilization and everything, right? Something that, you know, full transparency, right? I learned the hard way that, you know, on top of just kind of going hand in hand with the amount of credit used, if you get too high to those limits, that's going to tear your score down, right? So on top of it, you know, it just goes back to that responsibility. I want to give you guys some numbers if you want to write it down, just to kind of get an idea of how your credit is scored, right? So your payment history accounts for 35%, and correct me if you know any of these figures are wrong. Accounts for 35% of your actual score, right? So that's payment history. The amount that you owe, right? So your debt to income essentially is 30%, right? Length of credit history, which I'm going to jump back to Ryan here in a second with this. The length of credit history is 15% of your credit. And then the credit mix, that accounts for 10%. And then the amount of new credit inquiries, that's another 10%. So my question yes, I'm so sorry. Tell me where do you want me to go back to? Length of credit, 15%. And then after that, it's credit mix. So that accounts for 10%. So credit mix is essentially kind of what Ryan was saying. So you have an installment loan, credit card. Yeah, yep. And then the last, it's new credit. You got to definitely be mindful of that. You know, when you get those notifications, 0% for whatever, you go, it won't affect, it will, right? Whether it's a soft hit or a hard hit, it's going to affect, right? So Ryan, my question, what do you guys look for, you know, as far as essentially the length of credit? Is there something that you prefer to see over something, you know, over another one?
Every situation's different. You know, what we want to see is people handling their credit in a responsible manner, and there are multiple tools to do that. You know, when you're talking length of credit, you know what I mean? Like somebody that only has 1 year credit history, it's hard for the bank to determine how they've done in the past. And like I said, past trends it's not always true, but past trends a lot of time are future indicators. Now that doesn't mean that, you know, hard things happen to good people, because that happens all the time, right? Like we have to go to the doctor and next thing you know, there's $1,000 medical collection that hits your account and you know, it hurts, you know. I've been there before. I think most of us have probably been there in some capacity. But length of history is a true indicator of how things have gone in the past. Like what I talked about, the credit card balances, you want to keep, available credit, that shows financial responsibility. Sean, I'm not sure if I'm answering your question or
No,
not,
you're
but
good. And because the reason I ask that, because I know that everyone's different, right? I will tell you guys this, when I went to receive the funding, for Blackvest, essentially I was fortunate that what I was wanting to receive funding for, it was clear that it was going to essentially make money, right? It was clear that, all right, if need be, if they lose, if I stop paying, they can take this, and that's ultimately so you have to put yourself in the mindset of understanding, well, if I don't have sufficient collateral, that's where the cash flow aspect of things come from. You need to ensure that you have something that they can look at and essentially trust that they're going to be able to lend to you, right?
yeah.
So, I mean, go for it.
I was going to say, I guess a better way to answer DeShawn's questions is I can give you red flags. Like that's what we're trained to look for more than anything. So, a lot of times, when people are car shopping, right, you want to look for a good rate or you're looking for a certain loan. And if you do that over a course of, let's say, 10 days, there's going to be multiple different inquiries on your credit report.
Yeah.
To me, as a banker, that looks like you've been denied credit.
Yep.
And I need to, so that's a red flag, right?
Yep.
Now I need to understand why you've applied for 10 different loans in 10 different days. Yep. Point being here is if you're going to go car shopping and you're looking for a rate, do it all in 1 to 2 days. Narrow that window down a little bit. Don't stretch it out. Collection items, no matter what, collection items are a concern. So if you do have collection items, make sure there's a good explanation for them and the bank can understand why you're doing that. And again, if you know about something, it's better to talk about it ahead of time with your loan officer so they understand the credit situation. Payment history, we look at payment history. And so I'll just use this as an example. Divorce is the #1 reason why people get past due. So if I'm looking at a credit report and I see, 2 years of good credit history, no missed payments, and then all of a sudden in the months of May, June, July, and August, there's some past dues clustered together, and that ties in time with a divorce, you know what I mean? That's a good explanation. That's a good reason why we're past due. But if I look at a credit report and they're past due in June, and then past due in October, and then past due in January, and it's spread out over a couple of years, that may show that they're financially irresponsible, or they just don't have the means to make those payments. So keep that in mind too, that we want to be careful and cautious about making regular payments on time. And if we have a hiccup, it's okay, but we better have a good excuse for it, right?
Is that the same? And I'll jump to you. Did you have a question? No. Okay. I was going to say, is that the same, too, in your thought process? Just said have 2 years of excellent credit history, and then you see the last few months, whatever, kind of go downhill. Opposite of that. 2 years ago, they were horrible credit history, and then the last year and a half, 2 years,
you see improvements. Yeah, that's huge. You know what I mean? And that means, and so I took banking school early on in my career, and they said, don't be afraid to loan to the guy that has filed bankruptcy. Why? Because hopefully they've learned from their mistakes. So it's the same thing. Just because you had a hiccup at some point in time, maybe you actually learned from those mistakes and you're able to improve your credit, and it's documented on a credit score. But again, it's all about the story, like a good loan officer can tell when you're telling us the truth or not telling us the truth. So you always want to be honest and tell the truth. Yep. But don't be afraid to tell your story. When you write like a business proposal or business plan, tell the story. You know what I mean?
Yep. That's awesome. Yes, ma'am.
I think sometimes when you go to the bank, like when I bought my home, I thought I had to have perfect credit when, I made sure that everything was paid and, that I paid everything. And that's one good thing that my loan officer told me. She was like, and I don't know if this is true today, but I make sure I'm not late on anything.
Sure. Mm-hmm.
But one thing she did say was that, if you pay the minimum, ahead. Just don't be late because the banks want to see that you paying things on time.
Yep.
And that's all they wanna see. They don't care if you just pay the minimum, but they don't wanna see late
Yeah.
payments.
We do care if you just pay the minimum, but you're right. The most important thing is that we make the payments, right? You know what I mean? So, you know, again, a trend, and I guess I'm considering this education for everybody. You know, if you're paying just the minimum payment on credit cards for several years, it may suggest you don't have enough money to pay those credit cards back.
Yeah.
So you don't want to get in the habit of only paying the minimum, but no matter what, you're right, service the payment, you know, make the payment any way you can. But if there are months or years where, you know, cash flow is a little better, we get a tax return or whatever, you do want to pay down on debt as much as possible.
And two, I want to piggyback off that. Just always keep in mind too that, you know, there's technically 2 dates on, you know, credit cards and things, right? You have your actual due date, and then you have like the statement end cycle, right? So, you know, to be mindful of that, even as far as, and maybe I don't know if I should say this or not, but maybe as far as you know, your credit score is concerned, ensure that you are under 30%, you know, is kind of the rule of thumb. Make sure that you're under that 30% by the end of that statement cycle, because that's the total, and that's the number that's going to ultimately report to, you know, your bureau in that sense too. Yes, sir.
How important is it for you to have, I'm just kind of comparing personal credit compared to business credit? How do you guys value that for those that don't have?
So, sure, can I ask you how your business is set up?
It's LLC, so
Okay. So you're registered you're a registered LLC through the state of Illinois. And so.
Your social, or do you have a separate EIN?
Okay, but you still file a Schedule C. Okay. A lot of it depends on how your corporate structure is, and like a corporate attorney is going to explain to you better than I can. But I mean, I've got a chart, you know, at the bank, but it talks about liability and credit specifically to the corporate entities that you have. So you can have a C Corp, you can have an S Corp, you can have a partnership, you can have LLC, or you can have just a straight sole proprietorship. So in your case, the LLC does defer liability off of you personally, but it's filed on your Schedule C as far as your tax return. So when I'm looking at your LLC, you and your LLC are basically one entity to the bank. So your personal credit and your business credit are basically going to go hand in hand. So when we review like your tax return, for example, there's 2 things we're going to look at. We're going to look at the business itself. How does the business do? And then how do you do globally? And globally, I'm saying if I take all of your income, all the income for the LLC, and then all of your personal income, and then I look at your LLC debt and your personal debt, because you guys are both the same entity, and then we look at it globally to see how good the cash flow is. So DeShawn mentioned that he has rental houses, right? So if DeShawn comes to me with an application to buy another home, we're going to look at how well does that house cash flow, right? So we want to make sure that each house that he buys has what we call positive cash flow. So if he's renting it out for, let's say his payments are $1,000 for the payments and the taxes, well then we better hope that DeShawn is making at least $1,100 to $1,200 in rent. Okay, so that's what I mean.
Which
we're going to look at we're going to look at the rental house, and then we're going to look at DeShawn globally. Does that make sense?
Does that matter how he has his business set up at this point? What you just said? Because some people have businesses in series where they buy them property, Series A, Series B, Series C, and that limits them when they go get a loan from the bank, that they can just focus on that person. And then
Well, if their businesses, or if those different series and those different businesses are cash flowing, then it shouldn't limit them.
That's why he's the CEO, because I was sure wanting to hear how you answered that. That was good. That was good. Yeah, we're mic'd up. So yeah, was this information useful?
I have a follow-up question.
Yes, sir.
So at what point does the bank stop looking at your personal credit, like if you're an LLC and you build like business credit? What point do they not need to like go in for?
Never. Yeah, so again, I talked about it earlier about banks mitigating their risk. And so people create corporations to try to limit their liability and stuff like that. That limits your liability in a lot of things, like lawsuits, insurance, all that other stuff. But the banks are not willing to take that risk. Yeah. So if you have, let's say you have I think you were talking about building materials, construction materials. So let's say you set up a C corporation to manage your business, and the corporation is going to get the line of credit to manage everything. The bank is still going to ask you to personally guarantee the loan. I don't think you'll ever be able to get around that. It doesn't matter whether you do an SBA loan, a bank, a large bank, small bank, it doesn't matter. They're going to ask for your personal guarantee in some capacity. So I don't know that your personal credit history, credit score, all that will always be some sort of determining factor.
Okay. Just loans, credit cards,
all of it.
Because a lot of times you're going to find yourself in a space where you're going to have to utilize your personal to kind of jumpstart, right? I don't like saying it, but it's fact. So I just ensure that you do everything that you need that's necessary for your personal to put you in position to be able to go to Orion, right? Again, guys, that was what my heart's desire was, to bring the source, right? Ryan, I appreciate you as well.
No problem.
And I hope that, I really do, I hope that it was beneficial. What I will say, I am going to give my information. Ryan, can I give your email address as well? Here's the thing, you have two contacts. You have a contact that'll get you ready to then reach out to this gentleman here. What I don't want you guys to do is reach out to that gentleman before you go through the proper process of ensuring that you're ready for that. That makes sense? Because that's going to eliminate a lot of stress, frustration, and time. Make sense?
Yay!
Appreciate you. But seriously, if you guys, I'm going to put our information up here too. If you guys have questions, concerns, do not hesitate to reach out. After the last class we did, we had a bunch of individuals that since reached out. I gave them plenty of just pamphlets and schedules and to just contacts, utilize the information. And at the end of the day, I want to make sure that I provide you guys with any and everything that was provided to me, right? So we're stronger together than we are apart. So let's make it happen. All right.